Darren is with us. Darren's up next in Canada.
Hi, how you guys doing today?
Better than we deserve, sir. How can we help?
Okay, so I am a part of the school board for a small nonprofit grade school here. And my question today is, how can I best lead with a spirit of humility for the rest of my school board members? I'm the youngest member, brand new, and just, I don't know, maybe a sense of peace for what I need here is all the alarm bells are going off. And I don't know, it just seems like
What alarm bells?
Urgency.
Wait a minute, what alarm bells?
Mostly financial. So I started this year, was the year I started being part of the school board, and no one seems to think that our school is going to shut down. But to me, it's looking like if we continue the way we're doing things, we're not going to make it very far. And I don't know, my thoughts keep getting pushed aside by the other board members, but I just don't see what they are supposedly seeing. Am I crazy, or am I just young and inexperienced and just need to let them take care of it?
So it looks to you like that the revenue versus the expenses is on a crash course for the wall.
Correct.
That's a math thing. How are they explaining that away?
I get a lot of, well, I can't reinvent the wheel, but I would think that, well, if you change terrain, you've got to change your wheels, and we've changed terrain.
No. We have to first have agreement that we're heading towards the wall.
Correct.
Do we have agreement on that?
No.
Okay, then that let's start there. If you say, okay, we've got, I'll make up a number, $100,000 coming in, and it appears we have $120,000 going out. How is it you guys think we're covering that shortfall? I'm missing something.
So the thing they keep saying, since we're a Christian school, let God provide. Sure, I agree. Let God provide, but I believe He already has provided, and we're just letting the money fall out the window.
But there is a shortfall, and their answer is let God provide.
Correct. We're just kind of sticking our head in the sand. And
all right. That is not biblical.
No, I agree.
Jesus said, don't build a tower without first counting the cost, lest you get halfway up and you're unable to finish, and all who see you begin to mock you and say, this man began to build and was unable to finish. Here's another bunch of Christians who can't seem to do math, and they close the thing and hurt the reputation, the witness in the community, because they didn't bother to do arithmetic. Hey, God says He's going to feed the sparrows, but He doesn't drop worms into the nest. They have to leave the nest, go get the worms, right?
Yeah.
So if the only answer to obvious systemic business problems, sowing and reaping, cause and effect problems is nothing's going on, God's going to provide, and you're not in power to stop that, your best bet's not be there anymore.
See, I think that we actually have a lot of potential, though. I do think that we
You don't
can
have potential if you're going broke and everybody's standing around. The airplane's out of gas, it's going to the ground, and everybody's singing Kumbaya.
Yeah, that's true. I just think that...
I think the school has potential too, but it's got crummy leadership, is what you're telling me.
Right, and I'm trying, that's kind of the point of the call. How can I best come to this?
How many board members are there? How many board members are there?
5 total.
And how did you get on this board?
We are elected one by one from the society.
Society of what?
School society. It's just all the parents.
Okay, from the customers.
Correct.
Okay, so it's a nonprofit, and the customers vote on the kids' parents vote on who's going to be on the school board.
Correct.
And you all 5 have equal votes.
Correct.
Is there an executive, a superintendent, a principal that's supposed to execute the directions of the board?
Yes.
This person is also thinks everything's okay?
This person's part of the board.
I know, but they also think everything's okay?
They think that it will just, it sounds so weird to say it out loud, it will just work itself out in the end.
Yeah.
And I disagree. I want to be able, I do think that just with a few pen marks, you could fix this awfully quick. Just cutting costs. Dropping.
St. Ambrose said, work like it all depends on you, pray like it all depends on God. Okay, so this form of Christian narrative that if there's a form of Christian narrative that does not involve the power of God, it's not a Christian narrative. If there's a Christian narrative that does not involve you people taking responsibility for what he put in your hands as good managers and you're faithful in the little things, then it's also a toxic form of Christianity. And that's what you're discussing with me. So I don't know exactly how to convince someone not to do that, but I'm probably pretty quickly going to draw a line in the sand. I personally don't want to be involved with this board if they're going to fly the airplane into the side of the mountain. I don't want to be on board. I'd rather watch from a distance, and because in other words, this is an ultimatum. If they refuse to be responsible stewards, God has entrusted the responsibility of this school to them, and if they refuse to take the practical, reasonable business actions to cause the school to exist, then these are not adults, these are children. And I'm going to put it on the table. I mean, you could do that humbly. You don't have to be as brash as I'm being right now, but that's the essence of what you're facing, Darren, and I'm so sorry. It's so frustrating. I've been in those kinds of meetings. It's one of the reasons I don't serve on boards. I'm not very good at it because I'm right and they're wrong, and then there we are, So I'm the opposite of what you were asking about, So I don't know if I'm good enough to answer your question, but how do I humbly approach this? I think humble is you say, I'm not positive I've got any things, but my perception, ladies and gentlemen, is that God gave us this responsibility, and not addressing these issues is irresponsible, much like the parable of the talents. The one guy that was given the least amount did the worst with it, and what did Jesus do? He shut down the school. He took the money from the guy with the smallest amount in the parable of the talents that did a bad job and gave it to someone else, left him broke. Who'd he give it to? The one who addressed the issues, who did a good job of managing the money that he was given. So we have a responsibility as people of faith to take action and to do a good job as best we can with stewardship, and then leave the results to God. In other words, if you're gonna as you sow, so shall you reap. If you want corn, you should put some corn in the ground, not stand over the mud and pray for corn and say, well, God will take care of it. It'll work itself out. Yeah, you're going to have sun and rain and mud and no corn because you planted sparingly and you're going to reap sparingly. There's a cause and effect part of our faith walk as well. And so that's the kind of stuff I'm going to talk to them about. Is we have a responsibility as stewards over this opportunity called this beautiful little school that we have. And if we don't manage that, and instead we just stand back and say, God's going to fix things that we were supposed to take care of, that is irresponsible stewardship, and that's covered in Scripture. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm afraid that.
I don't know that they're going to hear that, though.
I've tried.
Yeah.
So a follow-up then. From this point on, what can I do? In my mind, I would have a couple options. I could stick around and do my best to try to work it out till the end of the year, until that decision of closing or not comes up. Or would you just walk out and give up? Or would you take another option?
I don't know that there's. I don't know that there's a nuclear option in terms of there's no. I personally wouldn't stir up a church split over it. I wouldn't try to get all the parents to fire all the board members and get responsible ones in there.
No,
I don't want to cause that much of a ruckus. That does feel it smacks of disunity and all those kinds of things that I abhor worse than I abhor poor stewardship. So, I think if you got to do what you got to do, Darren. You got to make a decision. I have no idea what to tell you to do. I think if I'm in this situation, I'm going to really do everything I can to be as convincing and persuasive as I can that we have to address these things or we're going to lose this, and it's going to be our fault, and God trusted it to us. And then if they just look at you like you've got one eye in the center of your head and you're too dumb for words and they're not going to do any of it, I really can't leave my name on this disaster that's going to happen. I have to step out. Now, you can just choose to do that now after having a discussion with them one last time, or you can choose to do that at the end of the school year or whatever. But if you are convinced that their irresponsibility and their lack of diligence in managing this well, and instead of making hard decisions, instead of adjusting expenses, instead of not hiring because they can't afford to, and ignoring the mathematics, in case of any of that, then if you're convinced that they're just not going to do it, then you're not dealing with people that you want to be associated with long term. I don't anyway. And so I've got to gently and kindly as I can go, guys, y'all have a different view on this than I do, and I don't fit in. And I sure hope what you're doing works. I don't see how it's going to work, and I can't leave my name on something that I think is being mismanaged. And it breaks my heart. I would love to. I would love to be in here and help, and I just can't. And so I've got to submit my resignation. And obviously, it's not a paid position anyway. It's just something you've got a heart for, and you're trying to be helpful to the community, and maybe your kids go there and whatever else. And it's just sad. It's just sad. But this happens a lot. This type of thing happens a lot in a nonprofit setting, sadly. And but it is incumbent upon those of us, for the rest of you out there that are people of faith, to trust God for His provision while simultaneously taking action and being responsible stewards over what He has given us. The area He has given you responsibility for, you're supposed to act on that area. That field is yours to till. That field is yours to plant. And if you don't do that and you stand back and say, God will provide, that is not Christianity. That's a form of mysticism that does not involve biblical Christianity, because God does not strike the field with lightning and corn pop up. He can, but He doesn't. Instead, He involves calluses on your hands, my hands, hoeing, getting the rocks out, putting the corn in the ground. And that's an act of responsible stewardship. And then once the corn's in the ground, then it's God's job to bring the sun and the rain. It's this wonderful dance, this rhythm, this partnership of faith with the great Almighty. And that's true in a nonprofit, and it's true for those of us that run a profit organization. By the way, there's no difference in nonprofit and profit, because as we've just heard from Darren, nonprofits that don't make a profit close. Nonprofit is an accounting entry by the tax people. It's not a biblical entry. It doesn't make it holy, and it doesn't give you a pass on cause and effect, sowing and reaping, because you put it under the heading of a nonprofit. And so we have to address those things out there. Darren, I'm sorry, you've got a sweetheart. You're kinder than me. I'm old enough. I'm the get off my lawn guy, and so my patience for this kind of stuff has waned over the years. I'm not as, if I was sitting in the room with them, I might be a little gentler than I am being right now. But that stuff aggravates the crud out of me, as you can tell. So I hope it works out for you. Hope it works out for those little kids in that school. I hope you and I are wrong, and these people have a plan, they have a vision that we just don't see in this conversation, and it all works out. I'm not going to be mad if it all stays open. I don't want bad things for them, but it does give us the ability to get on a soapbox and teach about a proper perspective of faith in the marketplace and how that all works out.